Hello everybody, my name is Eli, and today we're going to discuss the rhetoric used by the governing body of gymnastics within the United States, also known as USAG. Now, as a gymnast who's competed under USAG since 2014, I've personally witnessed a monumental shift in the rhetoric pushed by USAG, especially since the implementation of their safe sport policy in 2021, which aims to prevent all forms of misconduct and abuse within the sport of gymnastics. So, what has USAG done to achieve this goal? USAG's Health and Wellness Resources page largely addresses the coaches of young athletes and informs them on how to properly handle any mental or physical health issues an athlete may be dealing with, especially issues that relate to body image. Overall, I found that USAG was both effective and ethical in the way they employed body rhetoric to inform coaches about the importance of body acceptance within young gymnasts. However, USAG's use of visuals doesn't continue this same rhetoric, and is ultimately ineffective and unethical in conveying the same message about body acceptance. For those who don't know, body rhetoric is the idea that a person's body is symbolic to the argument being made. Body rhetoric can be used in three ways. The body delivers, the body enacts, and the body is the argument. Under the Body Image in Gymnastics, Keeping It Healthy tab, USAG relies on the third type. The body is the site of the argument. Now, it's common in the sport for younger prepubescent gymnasts to have smaller, more flexible bodies that make it easier for them to learn new and difficult skills. As they mature, their skills often regress. This is an extremely common issue in gymnastics that even I myself have faced. When I was 13, I was shorter, which made learning this skill, called a tapel, much easier. At age 18, however, I was much taller and I had to adjust how I did the skill to ensure that I didn't kick the ground. Making these changes can be very difficult for a gymnast, especially if they've been training it a certain way for a very long time. USAG strives to normalize this by arguing that regressing in skills is not an effect of having an inadequate body type, but rather a normal part of the sport. Their heavy use of the word acceptance exemplifies this idea. Coaches aren't being told to encourage their athletes to love their body, but rather accept it. This implies that we should simply appreciate and celebrate our bodies for being able to overcome skill regression. Similarly, USAG encourages coaches to equally welcome both strength and grace in women's gymnastics. Body types that are conducive to graceful presenting gymnastics are usually much more desired and represented. USAG aims to encompass all types of bodies, especially those that are more strong and powerful, which are typically less represented in gymnastics. This makes USAG's use of body rhetoric ethical. Unfortunately, I found that USAG's use of visual rhetoric is not ethical. In an infographic titled "When Trauma Impacts the Athlete," a man is depicted performing an iron cross on rings and a woman doing a split. This feeds directly into the idea that strength is the most desirable quality in men's gymnastics and grace and flexibility in women's gymnastics, which undoes the message previously established by USAG's use of body rhetoric. Another visual titled "Supporting Gymnasts' Injured Mental Health" represents diversity slightly better. There is a lankier rhythmic gymnast shown and a silhouette of a bulkier, more stout artistic gymnast shown. However, this still feeds into stereotypes, as rhythmic gymnasts with bulkier, shorter builds are almost never represented. This encourages a certain look in gymnastics, which is an unhealthy mindset for both coaches and athletes. It creates a social reality in which gymnasts that don't fit the normalized look are discouraged from participating in a sport that should be inclusive to everyone. Overall, I found that USAG's use of body rhetoric was effective and ethical when speaking to coaches, but was not effective and ethical when using visual rhetoric. When assessing the ethics, I focused on how well USAG conveyed the ideas of inclusion and diversity. As someone who grew up watching gymnastics, both online and on television, I was shocked to find out later in life that Nastya Liukin, all-around champion at the 2008 Olympic Games, was only 5'3". Why? Because she's relatively tall for a female gymnast, and sports commentators made that known to their audiences. Being tall isn't common in gymnastics and is therefore not normalized, so commentators often chose to focus on this one aspect of Nastya. This is an extremely common problem in gymnastics, and I believe rhetoric centered around inclusion and diversity can help overcome this issue. USAG's use of body rhetoric embodies these values. One thing I noticed is that no body types are ever mentioned. Coaches are only told to encourage their athletes to accept their body as it is. This leaves no question as to which body type should be accepted and ensures that no athlete is left unrepresented. USAG's use of visual rhetoric fails to achieve this same level of inclusion and diversity, as it perpetuates stereotypes that are already cemented within the gymnastics community. If USAG had used visuals that were less representative of what's normalized in gymnastics, their message could have built upon the message established by their use of body rhetoric. For example, USAG could have used silhouettes that showcased the flexibility needed in men's gymnastics, such as a split on the floor, or the power needed in women's, such as a high-flying tumbling move. This would have been a more unconventional, yet still an accurate depiction of gymnastics, providing representation for athletes whose bodies may not fit the norm. I'd like to end this video with this thought. The effective and ethical use of body rhetoric compared to the ineffective and unethical use of visual rhetoric shows how internalized these ideas of acceptable versus unacceptable bodies in gymnastics truly are. When not actively thinking about and combating these ideas, they manifest in simple yet harmful ways, like visual rhetoric. This highlights the importance of intentionally and deliberately thinking and planning out each piece of rhetoric used, especially when used by large companies and corporations like USAG. Thank you.